Hi, everybody. I guess it is time for Fun Friday with True Blue Quilts. I'm Andy, and I am going to be continuing to have this event live every Friday, probably in the morning, just because that works the best for me. And drop a comment in the chat box or below the video. Let me know where you are located and what you are quilting today. This is Fun Friday, and we're going to start off with just a little bit of quilt chat and then some show and tell, and then I have some games. I'll have a different game each week, and there may be some times where you need to do some preparation. So get on my email list at truebluequilts.com. You'll see the sign up in the sidebar, and you can sign up and be notified of all the fun events going on with True Blue Quilts. So let me just take a second and get set up over here on my other camera, my other computer, and we will get going with all of this fun. So was I going to try? You know what? Well, let's see here. Yeah, that old. I had my old laptop set up, trying to be a backup for me, because all this newfangled technology. My first time ever trying out this live stream and chat options, and it's kind of a lot to juggle, but we'll just plug right along and keep going. I am not, well, I'm tap dancing a little bit. You know, I used to be a school teacher, and you just keep rolling with the stuff and get to the meat of the stuff. I do see Regine has joined us. Thank you so much. Good morning and welcome. So my most recent YouTube video was about fabric prices. And if you haven't taken a look at that, I encourage you to hop over to YouTube and check that out. Quilting is an expensive hobby. You know, machines cost a lot of money. Fabric is that consumable portion of the business and the craft. You have to buy fabric, you have to buy thread, you are buying patterns, there's all the materials that go into it. If you need to have someone finish your quilt, that's an additional cost. It all adds up, and I'd love to hear some of your favorite tips for managing your quilt budget. In that recent video, I shared a couple of my favorite places for vintage and resale fabrics. So if you are one of those thrift store shoppers, that is a great idea. I'm seeing so many fun quilts that are made out of repurposed material. I haven't been brave enough to try a quilt from Blue Jeans, but that is certainly a way to go and a popular option. Also, memory quilts made out of people's old clothing, whether they're the favorite shirts. You know, obviously t-shirt quilts are really popular in terms of making some type of memory item. So that is the quilt chat. Let me look at my notes here. Oh, another funny discussion that we got into in one of my quilt groups was about terminology and how to relate the size of the block that you are making. So for any of our newer quilters or just people that get a little bit confused about the terminology there, when you talk about a finished block, in our minds, we normally think, okay, I've made this block and it's that square of fabric. And again, I don't have all my props handy, but you've made a square to go in your quilt. And this is where the disconnect comes. You're done with that block. It's ready, but we call that the unfinished size because you haven't done anything with that quilt yet. And in the next step, you're going to be sewing that block to something else. And that means that the final measurement, the finished size of the block, is where it ends up in the quilt. So when I made these stars for the corner of my banner, they were 6.5 unfinished. If I just had that block on my table, I might think of that as a finished block, but the finished size is what it shows up in this final layout where it's attached to something else. And so it loses that seam allowance. So you've got to be careful, especially when you're trying to coordinate a group project, which is where this discussion came up. Was someone was just talking about, oh, I'm making 12-inch blocks. Well, if the block is 12 inches next to your sewing machine and then you put it together with someone else's block, that 12 inches is going to cut down to 11 and a half in a quilt. So if you wanted it to be 12 inches overall in the finished quilt, then make sure that you end up with 12 and a half inches when you're done sewing that initial block. So quilting terminology can get a little confusing, but we tend to, the more you talk about it, the more you work it out and figure out what you are doing. I want to show off the quilt behind me. This is beaded curtain, and I finished this sample up for my Island Batik March Scrap Buster project, and I will have a blog post going up this weekend that details all of that. But I wanted to remind you that beaded curtain, you see here the pink and purple version, that is the featured pattern in the True Blue Quilts shop for the month of March. So you still have a few days to download this pattern at the sale price. So I encourage you as well. Okay, on to the fun and games portion. Each week on Fun Friday, I'm going to play a game. And as I get more comfortable with our chat features, then they will be a little more interactive. I'm sorry, I've just been, babbling at you this morning, but we'll get going. The first few episodes of are always a little bit rough, right? So I thank you for your patience and understanding with that. So like I said, each week we will have a different game. I will provide prizes. They could be coupons to my shop. They could be fabric. They could be patterns, all sorts of different things. And to satisfy the legal requirements, these prizes are not sponsored or endorsed in any way by Facebook or YouTube or the other online platforms. This is me, True Blue Quilts, providing some prizes to you. And I want to say hello to Cindy. Thanks for joining us. So each week is going to be a different game. This week is quilt identification. So I encourage you to take a quick look at the True Blue Quilt shop. That may give you a little hint. And we are playing Name That Quilt. So I'm going to hold up 3 different quilts that I have made, tell you a little bit about them, and you need to name that quilt. So you need to give me the pattern name. So the prize winners, I'm going to select 3 people to win a prize from my shop, but you have to email me the answers. So you're going to need to take notes. If you need to grab paper and pencil, do that. Email info@truebluequilts.com with the names of these 3 quilts that I'm about to show you. and then I will draw the 3 winners from the emails that I get. Your email must go out before 9 a.m. Pacific time. So you'll have about 45 minutes to get an email out to me to win a prize. So let me, excuse me, quick enter that into the chat. And the computer is wobbling, I'm sorry. info@truebluequilts.com, and you will be entered, if you have the correct answers, you will be entered in the prize drawing. Okay, so our first quilt for Name That Quilt is this one. Let me get it right side up. It's pretty big here. I can't get back far enough to show you the whole thing. But you should be able to get a good idea of what this quilt is from that view. And I remember drafting that quilt pattern. I was standing in my high school classroom with some graph paper. All my students were taking a test, and I was just, trying to figure out how to make those spirals and starbursts all together. And the name of the quilt, which you need to tell me, actually came from an NPR science program where they were talking about studying the color spectrum in space. So there's a little hint for you on the name of the pattern. I'll show that quilt again. This quilt also shows up in my book, Monochromatic Quilts, so you can find it there. On to the second quilt. Again, we're playing Name That Quilt. You need to email me with these 3 pattern names to be entered into a prize drawing from the True Blue Quilt shop. Okay, this next one I made as a baby quilt. I thought it would be a lovely backdrop for a baby. Can you just see them laying in the center of that quilt? You can make the background, all different colors, and that sweet little face here. So yeah, I thought that would be a fun quilt as a baby gift. And those types of projects are things that you can make ahead and set aside for those baby booms that tend to cycle here around spring and summer. Tend to be those baby times. But if you have babies born at other times of the year, you can certainly use themed fabrics. Wouldn't it be fun if you had a October baby to put some Halloween fabric in the background? Or, same thing with any of the holidays if you have babies born around that time. Or just a fun party backdrop to have people pose and take pictures. That would be fun too. So we are playing Name That Quilt. These are all quilts that are featured in the True Blue Quilts shop. And I will draw 3 winners from people that email me before 9 a.m. this morning. So you still have about 45 minutes to get that email to info@truebluequilts. And here is our last pattern. And this one is one of those classics. You collect all that novelty fabric, put it together, and then have fun playing games with the kids. This would be a great thing throw in the car for those long road trips, and the kids can entertain themselves in the back seat. And hopefully you won't have those fights of "he's on my side." That was always the refrain from my childhood, as my brother and I had to share the back seat of the car. And you try to spread out on those long road trips, but you can have some entertaining fun. And constructing these types of quilts is always enjoyable because you get to swap fabric with people. If you get a group of quilters together that are all making the same pattern, then everybody just buys one or two fabrics, get the square you need, and you can trade with other people. I had a recent comment on one of my YouTube videos that someone would be interested in a fabric swap like that. So definitely let me know if fabric swaps would be something that you are interested in. So I have showed you the 3 quilts for the Name That Quilt contest for today, our little fun and games on Fun Friday. Hi, Jan. So glad you can be here with us. I see some other anonymous comments, so I'm so glad that everybody could join me. Please mark your calendars. I hope this is a convenient time. I'm going to try and do these Fun Fridays at 8 a.m. Pacific for the next few months, and there will be a different game each week. So get on my email list. I'll give you some tips about the games and some hints there to increase your chances to win. So take a look at the 3 quilts that I showed you this morning and drop me an email with those to be entered to win. And that is all for today. I hope everybody has a lovely Friday and a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you back here real soon. Have fun quilting.